how do we integrate spiritual wisdom into our business practices?
If you have a podcast or audiobook, then you probably know that these little sound bites that you've seen all over social media are one of the best ways to promote and attract new listeners. So in this step-by-step tutorial, you'll learn how to create them using 100% free tools. So welcome and let's get started. So first, let's just get a sense of how easy this is to customize once it's ready, so you can decide if you want to invest your time and energy in learning how to create this for yourself or for a client in case you're a VA or you own any kind of content creation agency or business. If this is something that you're up for, awesome, we're about to get started. And if you feel like you're in a bit of a rush right now, no worries. You can save this video to your favorite playlist and make sure to get your free template by clicking the link in the description down below. So the first thing we're going to do to create this from scratch is go to our homepage in Canva and then click Create a Design. For this specific example, we'll use the vertical video size, which is 1080 by 1920. And this same size is perfect for sharing to Instagram as a story or reel, as a YouTube short in case you're sharing this to YouTube. And this is also the same size that you need for sharing on TikTok. Once in here, we're going to set our background to black and use our background as black. The next thing we're going to do is just work on our layout. So we'll go to Elements and then just go down to our frames and choose a square frame. We're going to put this a little bit at the top, and we can use the Option key trick to enlarge it equally to the sides. So the size that we want is around 800. So 800 will be okay, like that. And the next thing we're going to do is go to Text and click Add a Heading, because we'll be adding our podcast name. So for that, we'll just change the color of our font to white. The font that I use for my example is Montserrat, so we'll just choose that. Be a little larger, like that. Just use a sizing that works good for you. For the spacing, I used a 1.2 spacing, and this will make sense in just a minute, but for now, let's just leave it like that. And then you can just duplicate this by clicking it and pressing the Option key on your keyboard while you're dragging it down, and then just adjust the size to be a little smaller and remove the bold like that. And these are your podcast name and your podcast title. Just adjust your layout. Okay, so the next thing we'll do is insert our podcast platform. So for that, all you need to do is just go to Shapes and look for this rounded rectangle and just insert that. Adjust the size to be a little larger. You can change the color to something like gray for now, because to distinguish from the rest, and adjust your corner rounding to look a little bit more curved. Okay. The next thing we'll do is just insert our podcast cover image. Just drag and drop it. And next, we're going to insert our background. So what I did here was basically just taking the same photo from my podcast cover and then just sent it to the back. And what I did next was to just adjust the transparency a little bit to be less intense, and then just give it a little bit of a blur effect by going to Edit Image, Blur, and then just click on Whole Image and adjust the blur to be a little bit more blurred. Okay, so what I did with that was something like that. If you want to make it a little bit more intense, like the color is still present, you can also do that. And next, what we'll do is insert our podcast waveform. So I'm just gonna put the podcast waveform here. I'm just gonna look for a podcast waveform, and this is one that I like, and as you can see is a free option. So what I did here was just duplicate it by dragging it to the right while pressing the option key, and then just group it and make it smaller like that. Then just make your adjustments, like center it, and just make your styling adjustments to make it look better. Adjust the size of your font like that. And the next thing that we're going to do is just insert our podcast platform, which for this will be the Spotify one. So I'll just upload that, and I'll also be uploading the YouTube music because it's another one that I'll be using later. Great, so once that's uploaded, what I'll do here is, since the background is already different, what I'll do is just change my color to black for the podcast platform, because I'll be using the Spotify one, which looks a little bit better and with a black background. So what I did here was to insert this logo and just adjust it to show only the icon, and then just simply adjust the size of the logo to make it smaller. And what you can do here is just, duplicate this by pressing the option key on your keyboard and just dragging it where you want it to go. And then just, a little trick here is just is to make this align to the left, so that when you start typing again, your new text, it will align to the left. So what you can do here is just put this in a bold style, and then just make any layout adjustments that you need to make. A little trick here is to group these two things and then just align them to the center, and do the same with the little bubble in the background, and that way you're sure that it's all centered. So once we have this ready, we are almost ready to go. All we need to do now is head on over to our podcast episode title, and then just copy and paste it. So mine got a little bit bigger than I thought, so what I'll do is just, adjust the size, and then just adjust the size of my fonts to look a little bit smaller. So what I'll do here is just copy and paste the name of my podcast, or write it if that's the case, and just write Gifted Souls Podcast. Write the name of the podcast. This is not actually my podcast.
From time to time, you'll notice me creating these fictional brands just for example purposes. My intention with this is to make your learning experience a little bit more entertaining.
And you can add your name below it, like that. And as you can see, this is ready to go. Now that we have this ready, all we need to do is just insert the audio for our soundbite. And we'll do that by just dragging and dropping it. And once it's uploaded, click on it, the audio, and as you can see, this becomes a video that will work very well with your audio. You can adjust just like any other video, and just, you can test this by just...
So, how do we integrate spiritual wisdom into our business practices?
So, you can make any adjustments. This little soundbite is about 43 seconds. So I'll just adjust this to end. You can make this as long as you want or as short as you want. If you want to make it a little bit shorter, you can do that as well. Just adjust your timeline to fit the part of the podcast that you want to show. If you don't have the actual specific soundbite, you can always, just upload your whole podcast and then just take out little pieces of it and make these little soundbites to promote on social media. Once your soundbite is ready to be shared, just go to the upper right corner of the screen, click Share, Download, select MP4 as your file type, and click Download. So the next one we're going to do is this one, which is for a YouTube podcast that is hosted on YouTube. So you can actually do this very easily. All we're going to do is go to File and click on Make a Copy. So Canva is duplicating this for us, and we're going to give this another title. So again, all you need to do is just drag and drop your podcast cover, and then just go to Position and click on your background. You can bring it to the front just for a second, and then just drag and drop this. A little bit like that. And since your image is already blurred, it will already give that effect to it. So I'll just go to Position again and just drag it to the very back. And for the background, I think I'll be using a different color, maybe a little darker, like that. Yes, I like the contrast of that. And then because I have to adjust this to the actual name of the podcast, what I'll do is just copy and paste the name of the podcast. And the podcast title, the podcast episode title. And then just finish copying and pasting the information of my podcast.
By the way, this is in fact my podcast, and it's called My Brand New Skills here on YouTube and YouTube Music, in case you want to come check it out.
So next what I'll do is just, since I had already uploaded the YouTube Music logo, I'll just simply adjust this to make it a little smaller, like that. And just place it on top of the other. So a little trick here is to select this and then just Control X for cutting. And then we can ungroup this and just select this one and delete it. And then just paste that, and it'll paste it in the exact same place. So since this is not Spotify, I'll just write listen on YouTube. So again, I can make these two grouped and center them by going to Position, Arrange, and then click Center, and center this as well. Great. Perfect. So we now have our podcast soundbite for YouTube. And again, you can simply drag and drop your podcast audio into your Canva project and wait for it to upload. Switch the audio to the audio that you want to share. This one is the entire podcast episode, so you can just, test and find a little soundbite that you want to use, and then just edit your timeline to fit. You can just adjust your audio to fit the specific moment of your podcast that you want to share.
Once you're happy with how your soundbite looks and sounds, simply go to the upper right corner of the screen, click Share, Download, select MP4 as your file type, and download.
Great. So next we'll be making this other example that we have, which is this one, and this is a little different, and it's based on the Listen on Spotify model. So for that, all we need to do is you can grab the same example because it's very similar. Again, you can go to File and then just make a copy. So I'll give this one a different name and then just start changing the basic things like the podcast cover, like that. And then just change the background for the background that I want to use, which is this one. And I think I want to make this a little bit more blurred. So I'll just click on Edit Image. Blur again because it's already a blurred image, but I think I want to make it a little bit more blurred, like that. And then just see how it looks. And then just click Position to send it to the back. And I think that it's still a little too light in my opinion, so I think I will do two things. I will adjust the transparency to be a little bit more faint, and also I will click on Edit Image and go to and just go to Adjust and desaturate this a little bit, like that. And then just make it, I think what I'll be doing is adjusting the brightness as well to make it darker, so that the title, the podcast title and information is a little bit more, it's easier to read, like that. I think you can always make any other adjustments that you want to make. And because the background is now a little bit darker, maybe for this little bubble that says Listen on Spotify, I may want to use a grayish color, I think. Yes, like this one. Yes, this is a little bit better. But what happened here, as you can see, is that the Spotify icon now shows the background color. So what I'll be doing here is just go to Elements and then click the circle shape and insert the circle. I'll make this a little smaller. Just cut it and paste it right here. I'll make it black, so, and then go to Position and then just drag it to the back of the icon. I can always group this again so that it stays together in case I make any other adjustments. And as you can see now, it looks much better. If you want to give this a little bit of a shadow effect at the top, you can also do that by going to Elements and then just looking for a shadow, clicking on Graphics, and just grabbing an option that you can use, whether you're using a free Canva free or Canva Pro. There are options for either one. This is a free option. The one that I'm using right now is a free option. And as you can see, I'm just dragging it. What I'm doing is just making it larger and dragging it. It gives a little bit of a gradient effect at the top of the podcast cover. Great, so now that we have this ready, again, you can repeat the same steps we did before. You can insert your audio and delete if you were using another one, and then just insert it and make any adjustments if you want the soundbite to be a little bit longer or shorter, depending on what you need. If you want, you can also add any music to it. So once your soundbite is ready to be shared on social media, just go to the upper right corner of your screen, click Share, Download, select MP4 as your file type, and click Download. This is a little bit different because it has different fonts in it, but no worries because we'll make it work just right. We're going to use this same model because it's very similar. So we'll just go to File and then just make a copy and then just change the name. This is a little bit different, but we're going to start by just inserting our podcast cover. I'll just zoom in a little bit and make it first. I'll go to Elements and then click Shapes, insert a square shape and make this larger like that. Make this almost the exact same size that it had before, like that. I'll change it to black. And on position, I'll just drag this behind the podcast cover. Now I'll select my podcast cover and make it a little smaller so that it gives this different framing style, which I like. And just adjust the transparency to be a little bit fainter. And then just make any sizing and layout adjustments that you want to make. And if you want to make this a little bit fainter, you can do that too by selecting the whole group and then just clicking, adjusting the transparency a little bit. This one I want to make it a little bit fainter, like that, and just make sure that's at the center. So this one has a little bit of a different layout, and we're going to adjust it by just copying and pasting the name of the podcast like that. And it's a little bit different. So for this one, the Playfair display is the font style that I used for this example. So make the text a little bit bigger and then just duplicate this by just clicking on it while pressing the Option key and dragging it down. Then just write presented by, and it all depends on what you want. You can make any layout adjustments like center your text. This text, I don't want it to be that far apart. My characters, I don't want them to be that far apart, so I'll just adjust this a little bit more. And this is something else that you can do, which is to make this italics just so that it highlights, your name or the name of the podcast presenter. You can also give this an outline effect by just clicking your text and going to Effects, Outline, and choosing a white outline and setting the thickness to a setting that you like. And then you can also just use the actual episode number that you are promoting and insert the title of that episode. I'll be making some adjustments like setting this to a bold style and adjusting the letter spacing to be a little bit more spaced out. And then for the title underneath, I'll just adjust this a little bit to the side. In this example, I think it's a little bit different. I think, it has, the waveform is all the way here. It's right below the podcast title, like that. You can also adjust the letter spacing to be a little bit more spaced out. And for this Montserrat font, I will use a different style of Montserrat. I think I will be using the semi-bold style, which is a little bit thicker, but it's not quite a bold. I'll just give this a little bit more line spacing like that. And I'll be changing the background image as well. Just go to my uploads and change it to the actual image that I want to use, which is this one. And because it already has the blur effect, it will automatically give it the same blur effect that it had. So I think I will make this a little bit less transparent because the image is already pretty dark. So I'll make some adjustments to the image, like setting the brightness to a little bit of a higher setting, and then just, make any adjustments that you feel like making to make your podcast soundbite look great. Just make this a little bit more centered, and remember that you can always just insert your soundbite by dragging and dropping it. And this one, I'll just be deleting it and just inserting my new one, which is the one that I want to use. This is a little soundbite, and it's 23 seconds. So I'll just adjust it to that to fit the audio. You can always just test this.
It's a common belief that you need to make huge sacrifices or have a massive income to conquer your credit card debt. But here's the truth.
You can just make any adjustments and add any background music. If you want to add any background music, you can always use Canva's library of resources, or simply just upload your own. There are tons of free resources online, so you can just adjust the volume of your background music and then just keep testing and make any adjustments that you need until you're happy with how it looks and sounds.
And once you're ready to share your soundbite on social media, simply go to the upper right corner of the screen and click Share. Next, click Download. Select MP4 as your file type and click Download. And if you want to learn how to create a horizontal podcast video frame just like this one, make sure to check out this video right here, where I teach you all my secret tips to achieve very professional results using not much more than your Canva free account. I hope this tutorial was valuable for you. If it was, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you have any questions or topic suggestions, please let me know in the comment section. The world needs you, beautiful. Always remember that.